14 years. I've been out for a little over a year, maybe a year and a half. I just want to say one thing about Marc Headley. I could say a lot of things. I'm honored to be on the same stage as this guy. And one of the things that he talked about having no credit, and all these strikes were against him because he had no history and all that. I can say that in about 3 years, he started a multi-million-dollar company. He's doing just fine. So this is a real man, in my opinion. I was very happy and honored to be invited here by Frau Camberta and Hamburg, excuse me. And I kept thinking about what I was going to say, and I really didn't know what to talk about and even last night I thought, oh, okay, maybe I'll talk about that, and I didn't write a speech or anything. So, but then I started to think about it, and what I want to talk about today is why I think Scientology is dangerous. Some examples, because just as Larry said, I mean, you could go on and on and on for days and days talking about Scientology. And so I want to try and hopefully be specific in a way that's useful to people in governments, because as far as I understand, one of the major purposes of a government is to protect the people. And Scientology is, in my opinion, quite dangerous. It's not Darfur, but it is our own little slice of hell. An interesting thing for me is that the word Scientology, per L. Ron Hubbard, he describes it many times. And it's defined by him simply as knowing how to know. And it occurred to me today that that's an interesting thing, because what Scientology is selling, one of the major things that they sell to get people to buy their services is certainty. You will have certainty in your life, which is very seductive. People want to know. People want to know. It's difficult, I think, for people to wonder, to not know. And so they're seduced by this certainty. But when you think about it, it can be quite dangerous. There was a wise man who said, he who thinks he knows doesn't know. He who knows he doesn't know knows. And so if you have certainty, which is what happens with the Scientologist, they know they're right. And what's dictated to them in this religion comes from the scriptures, quote unquote, from L. Ron Hubbard and now David Miscavige. So in other words, what's the right thing and what is true is told to them. For the only faith, I was very trained in Scientology, and I studied it deeply. The only faith I could ever come across, the only faith in this religion, quote unquote, is that if L. Ron Hubbard says it's true, then it is true. So you get these people with certainty. They know. And what they're operating on is what L. Ron Hubbard said. So part of what L. Ron Hubbard is telling these people is that we are the only hope for mankind, for this planet. Indeed, this sector of the galaxy, whatever that means, is on a precipitous fall toward terrible destruction that makes Dante's inner circle of hell look like a picnic. Okay? So, if those are the stakes, and you now know that you're the only hope for mankind, what are you willing to do to save these people? Because Scientologists, people who get involved in Scientology, from my experience, are some of the most decent, generous people you can ever meet. Think about somebody like Larry or Mark who joined the Sea Organization. I mean, what kind of a person is it that's willing to sign a $1 billion contract and spend year after year after year for no pay, for no decent food, and no sleep to help people like me move up the bridge to total freedom, which is what Scientology is made up of, is basically a series of steps called the bridge to total freedom. And it's the one route, the only route, according to Hubbard, to free man from this trap and save mankind from certain destruction. So when you have this certainty, you understand, it helps to justify what some of the people are willing to do. Does that make sense? So I thought another interesting point that maybe would be useful to people in government, and maybe even particularly in Germany here, is a concept in Scientology that, per Hubbard, when you reach a state called the state of clear in Scientology, you're no longer a Homo sapiens. Do you understand? You're now what he calls a Homo novis. And if you think about that, it's really, really dangerous. I mean, it calls to mind, for me, the whole concept of Übermensch. It's an Übermensch. You're not even, it's the difference between a Homo erectus and a Homo sapien. You're now a Homo novus. So you might be friendly with this Homo sapiens, but it's almost like a pet. It's a cute thing, but they're just an unenlightened creature that doesn't understand. And you see how now this distances you from others? And you people in government, be assured that a Scientologist can be very charming, he can be very nice. As I said, they're very decent people. But they do know that they are more evolved than you, and they're the only ones who understand the way it really is. And they are the only hope. So would they be willing to lie or mislead you? I mean, if you're the only hope for mankind, it's justifiable to kill somebody. It's to go to any length to save the group, because they operate on a concept also of what is the greatest good. And built into that concept of what is the greatest good is that it's definitely Scientology, because we're talking about saving the planet. And these poor Homo sapiens walking around don't get it. So we have to come in and take care of them. And if people get hurt along the way, it's in the name of Scientology, which is the only hope we have. So you see why these concepts are dangerous. Now, this also leads to something else for me that is really awful. It's probably one of the main reasons I'm here today, because I'm an unlikely person here, but one of the things that really gets me, and I'm not even a victim of it, too bad, is this whole concept that Marc alluded to called disconnection. And now you understand. Let me ask you something. You don't ask, it's just a rhetorical question. Can any of you people, if I told you, or your religion, or whatever you think is most important philosophically, if it dictated to you that right now, from this moment forward, you will never communicate with your child, your wife, your husband, your brother, your sister, your best friend. Can you imagine that? Would you ever accept that? Can you think that you would ever accept that? So we think about that, and people talk about disconnection, right? But I must imagine that somewhere in your mind you think, I'd never do that. I assure you that any Scientologist, the day before he was a Scientologist, would never consider that. I, for one, now, I can't imagine. My children, are you crazy? There's no way. And so that leads me to think about something, is that for me to do that, and now I'm no expert on psychology or psychiatry or the mind or anything. So I don't know what brainwashing is really. And the Scientologists will argue it, or mind control. There's something that's got to be done to me for me to make that leap, just as you know it would be for you. Yet thousands and thousands of Scientologists do it like that. Indeed, when I left the church, and I was very popular, and I was not a loud, disaffected person. But one fine day, after a long story, which I won't bore you with now, I realized that I couldn't keep my own personal integrity and continue to be part of nor support the organization. I said, I'm going to slip out the door, guys, basically. Every single person who was associated with me was contacted. I called people. I never said goodbye. There was one girl who had found out, who was very close to my wife, and she sobbed for hours, apologetically. Said, I just can't leave. I can't, I need it for my kids, she was saying, and stuff like that, and I can't tell her how to lead her life. And so, again, back to you government people your job is to protect the common weal. Something's happening. There's just too much circumstantial evidence. Like that ain't right. So, just let alone, imagine just if you're a Catholic. I don't want to belabor the point, but you're a Catholic, and something terrible happens in your life. Your child dies or whatever, and you just feel like there must be no God. We've heard stories like this. And you say, I'm going to leave the church, or whatever, you stop being a practicing Catholic. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. It might screw up Christmas dinner with mom and dad. But I don't think mom and dad would say, they would have moved, nor not return your call. Me, I had a 4-year-old son at the time when I left, excuse me. And, he was kicked out of school. It's not nothing terrible. I didn't lose a family member. But, it's an interesting thing to just have a 4-year-old come home and, why can't I see this kid? Why can't I see? He's only friends. Hey, luckily he's a social guy and he's doing fine now. He's made a lot of friends. But that ain't a church to me. But you see, these things get justified for the greatest good. You see how it all kind of goes together? Because it's hard to understand. So what I want to do is try to make people understand. Because a lot of people say, how could this? How? I don't quite know. I'm not an expert. But something happened. Even now, it's interesting. You think, oh, Jason woke up. He's out. Yeah, I woke up and I got out. But it's as though, and I hate to I don't normally talk a lot about my own personal thing, but just to illustrate, because I'm doing, I'd say, relatively well. But it's the best way I can equate it, it's like if you were hypnotized. So to some degree I came up. It's like I woke up, like you wake up in the morning, and it took me about, I'd say, 5-6 months to maybe get out of bed. But I'm just now maybe making the coffee. I'm not quite there yet. Because nobody snapped their fingers and said, when I snap my fingers and say chicken, you're no longer going to be a chicken. Do you understand? All right. So those are some things that I think are dangerous. Here's some more things that I think are dangerous that I hope can be useful, that I can talk about, besides the grievous things that they were talking about. Everybody knows Scientology costs a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And that also affects the society when you've got people paying a lot of money that's not taxable, of course, okay? Part of this that's hidden, that has become apparent to me, and one of the things that led to my leaving, is that I realized that it's a ripoff. Is that a word that communicates? Okay, good. So a ripoff. In other words, David Miscavige and the executive hierarchy are aware that they're ripping people off. And I can give you examples. Okay? So, here's one. There's a course, this is what I've learned since I've been out, called the Key to Life Orientation Course. It's 2 courses that go together, and it's supposed to make you understand life and know what your real purpose in life is. That's the end product that they sell. It's a very expensive course, okay? For many, and they've been selling this thing and telling you it's imperative that you do it if you want to really make your correct steps on the bridge to total freedom, okay? Now, what I've learned since I've gotten out is that for 10 years, really, literally since it's been released, they were aware that the whole thing was screwed up and that it didn't work. But they continue to not only have it available, but to push it on people. While behind the scenes, they're working feverishly to learn how to fix it. And guess what will happen when it's fixed? They'll tell everybody that not only the ones who did it, they'll have a new push. The Key to Life is re-released perfectly. And so all you other people who've already done it, you should do it again. You don't get and not for free. And that's brainwashing too, because the other people say, oh goody, because I always had a problem with my Key to Life. It's sad. Okay, there's many, many examples of this. There's this thing that came out. When did the Golden Age of Tech come out? 1996. They came out with this thing, the Golden Age of Tech. In other words, everything had been going wrong. Anything that had been going wrong in Scientology is because the tech, which is the scriptures, the meat and potatoes of Scientology, how it is done, was being misapplied. And thanks to David Miscavige, he's figured the whole thing out, and now you have to do this golden age of tech. Okay? So I was a trained Scientologist. I was told I have to redo everything. I had to rebuy the thing. I had just finished. Yeah, and redo it again. You have to do it. Okay? And it's like, okay, and you feel, and they resell the thing with a straight face. And the Scientologists do it over. I mean, that's crazy. Now, when I had bought my training package, they were well on the way to getting ready to release the Golden Age of Tech. And they let me buy the thing, encouraged me to hurry up and do it just in time so they could do it. That's a ripoff. That's unethical. And they claim to be the most ethical group on the planet. That's criminal. Or misleading. To me, it's criminal. I mean, it's awful. Just now, recently, they have the basic books re-released. This is how many books? Maybe 20 books? 15 books? Something like that. These are these basic books, apparently written by L. Ron Hubbard and compiled by people at Golden Era Productions. Okay, it's, maybe 1,000 pages, maybe 1,500 pages, all big type, small pages. Okay, there's some interesting data there. If you like that stuff, that's fine. Okay. They changed a few things in these books, okay? Now, they're telling every Scientologist that they must buy these books again. You know how much they charge? $3,000. $3,000 for 20 books like this. That's crazy. And to me, as I think about it, again, I think that's an indication of mind control, or whatever you want to call it. Because they do it. Not only do they do it, they help sell them. And they're all enthusiastic about it. And this is great. Which is another interesting thing. As a Scientologist, this is in my humble opinion, the tacit responsibility of a Scientologist is to lie. Because you're a Homo novis. You're an example. And of course you still have problems and issues. But you're not supposed to, because you're clear. You're OT. You understand? And so these people now, when they get these little, the books are re-released, and David Miscavige assures you that's the reason for this little problem that maybe you're having. they secretly go, ah, good. And it just leads to more of the same. Because he's changed a sentence here, a little this, a little that, which also enables them to keep the copyright, incidentally, which I think is interesting. Here's something kind of interesting if we look at this kind of historically. And one of the last things I did as a practicing Scientologist was I had long since said, I'm not going in session. You know, they kept saying, oh, come on, we'll take you into session for free. I said, man, you guys are making me worse. I said, I wouldn't go in session if you paid me $1,000 an hour. That's how bad it was. Okay? And I could have used $1,000 an hour, let me tell you. But I just said, no mas. I cannot do it. Okay? So they said they have these things called the LRH, L. Ron Hubbard, Congresses that have been released. So these are symposiums given by L. Ron Hubbard from 1956, I think it was, maybe 52, 4, somewhere around there, through maybe 68, up until the St. Hill Special Briefing Course, right? Anyway, it's maybe about 20 lecture series, okay? So I thought, you know what? I got a new dog. He needs to be trained. I'll take a little tape recorder and I'll go out on a walk and I'll walk my dog every morning. I'll listen to a couple of tapes and I'll get in shape. So I got through these tapes pretty fast. And this, of course, the idea was to get people to, you know, connect with L. Ron Hubbard, which they call Source, which is very interesting. He's Source. And that's a word to take a look at. You know, that's part of the tech, too. But at any rate, I listened to these lectures, these series of lectures. And the first series of lectures is welcome, and he's very gregarious and charming. And he's basically, the great news is, everybody, I've finally got the state of clear tapped. I know how to deliver a clear like this. And here's all you have to do. And so I know that this new thing was now used to disseminate selling Scientology because we can now deliver the state of clear. Now, with a straight face, I can tell you this, that every series of lectures delivered by this man for the next 10 or 12, 15 years was, guess what, everybody? I've got it. I've got the state of clear tapped. It was the same thing. And I was like, what the hell? This is crazy. They've been doing this since the first day. And we've been buying it. I remember there was a thing David Miscavige did because at this point I was starting to get like, I can't take this. You guys are making me, they wanted, they had this thing in the new part of the golden age of tech. They had this thing called a security check, okay, which is basically where you are interrogated to make sure you don't have any crimes in order to be enabled to receive high-level auditing or access to the OT levels, okay? And they were asking me these questions, and it was going on, and I know when things are making me worse. I'm happy to get off a peccadillo. I don't have anything to hide. But when it's asked all different directions, and it's taking this, and it's costing $50,000, at a certain point, and I was very uncommon for most Scientologists. Most of them were just taking it. And everybody was unhappy. And it was, I mean, I'm sure the statistics were crashing. I said, listen, when L. Ron Hubbard died, they said he went off to Target 2 to start, which was be a new planet, to clear that planet. I said to the people, the executives of Scientology, when they told me I had to buy more, I said, I'm not doing any more auditing. I said, I don't care if L. Ron Hubbard comes back from Target 2 and tells me I got to do it. But I'm not doing it. And I did not receive auditing for probably a year and a half. And of course, I was becoming disaffected. Let me tell you something. Finally, about a year and a half later, David Miscavige goes on a maiden voyage, which is when they go on the ship in the Caribbean, and he has this great release. And so they did a big event. I wasn't there, obviously, because I was maybe doing a little study and just kind of like licking my wounds at this point. And I say, and they said, Jason, you got to come in. You got to see this thing. This is just for you. You're going to love this. And I see David Miscavige, and he says, with a broad smile and a puffy chest, he says, I have great news. All those sec checks, we were wrong. Arbitraries are canceled. Arbitraries are canceled, he's declaring. And they're like looking at me like, Jason, and the whole crowd gets up and there's clapping and they're going crazy like, oh, goody, because I get to save money and now I'm not going to be all messed up in my head. I can maybe get some gains in Scientology. And this is this big announcement, and they're looking at me and I'm going, huh. They said, man, you make a mistake that makes you probably $250 million, and that's how you handle it? Like you're some kind of great guy to finally admit? And these Scientologists are up there giving him a standing ovation and crying tears of joy. Something's wrong. So I look at this as I talk to you, I start to realize, see, that's probably why I'm out and they're in, is that for some reason, I don't know why. You know, I just started to wake up. But let me tell you something, that process took 10 years and about $800,000. Okay? So there you go. Here's another thought I had. I don't know, I'm not a legal mind or anything like that, and I'm just going to give this to you in closing as something that may be useful, an avenue for government, law, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of controversy, I think everybody knows, about how many Scientologists there really are. I mean, I'm sure that they include me as a Scientologist and my little son, because he was, when he was born, David Miscavige gave him a lifetime membership, was one of the gifts he sent him. And I still get mail, so perhaps they consider me still of their number. I'm not sure. But it's an interesting thing, but there's certain ways that you can actually determine or get an idea. One, I was talking to Mark on the plane. He gave me a very good barometer that one could use. They released, you know that everybody uses an e-meter, electropsychometer in Scientology. Any good Scientologist is supposed to not only have one, but 2 e-meters. And when they have a new product, all the old products are outdated and worthless. When they came out with the new e-meter, they made about 30,000 of them. Okay? They still haven't gotten rid of all of them. Now, I don't think every Scientologist bought 2, and they certainly, but they also have to give a bunch to the organizations to audit with. Okay? 30,000. The fastest growing religion on the planet. Okay? Here's another indication. A friend of mine was working up lines. It was Headley. I get all my information from Headley. But guy was upline, it was Headley, and he was responsible for putting together the events. Every year Scientology puts on these events, L. Ron Hubbard's birthday. It's this big extravaganza where they get to get the public pumped up and feed them a bunch of misleading information about how well Scientology's doing, including things like we never lose a law case or anything like that. And the statistics are going through the roof. Incidentally, since the golden age of tech, the statistics are crashing, okay? And that's very, it's amazing. Anyway, no Scientologist should ever know that information. Because if the statistics are crashing, that means that top management is suppressive. In other words, David Miscavige. So they'll never know this, okay? At any rate, he told me that they spent $400,000 to promote an event. And they promote, and I'm telling you, as a public in Scientology, when there's an event coming, you coming to the event? He gets like, oh man. There's like 2-3 weeks where it's like, please. You see a guy's coming up to you, yeah, I'm coming to the event. Just, yeah. Okay? So it's like you're really pressured to go to these events. The last event that cost them $400,000 to promote, and they do their own promotion, so it's not like it's expensive for them. So that's a lot of promotion when you're paying people 36 cents an hour, okay? And you have all the machines to paint them up your flyers and whatnot. 10,000 people showed up worldwide. 10,000 people. $400 a person they pay. And 10,000 people. Now it's interesting, when Anonymous had their first protest worldwide, without even any organization at all, they had 10,000 people. Listen, here's the last little point on that thing. It's been tracked and figured out that in the Sea Organization, which is the most elite group, you know, a lot of people get into Scientology. Oh, you know, maybe I heard Tom Cruise did it. Let me try a course. People who join the Sea Org, you know, I'm talking about the commitment that they make is extreme. And it's a particular, as L. Ron Hubbard said, breed of cat that would be the kind of person that's willing to make this kind of a commitment. So they're really serious people. They're signing a 1 billion year contract. So they are saying, not only will I serve under these conditions till the day I die, when I come back next lifetime, and the one after that, and the one after that, and the one, I will continue to come to help forward the purposes of Scientology. That's a hell of a commitment. There are 25,000 ex-Sea Org members. There are now, in the Sea Organization, 4,000 to 8,000. It's hard to get the number. So that means that the statistic for the most hardcore Scientologists is that 5 out of 6 leave. Okay? And when you get on these websites like Clambake, or these people who are anonymous, but were actually used to be in the Sea Org, and they've contacted me in private messages, and they are scarred and hurt and scared, and they can't stand up and say, yeah, my name is Bill, and I don't believe in Scientology, and here's why. They can't say that. They don't have that luxury because, you know, they're afraid they'll never see their daughter. So they have to kind of toe the line. Or if they route it out of the Sea Org in the way that the Sea Org permits you to leave for whatever reason, let's say you refuse to have the abortion, you have to sign an affidavit saying, and it's filmed, you have to sign an affidavit that every time you say something negative about Scientology, you have to pay $50,000. So these are the things that inhibit these people from speaking up. And that's a whole other subject. I mean, that's just wrong. You can't, that's not right. You can't, that's controlling their mind even after they're out. Okay? So here are these hardcore Scientologists. And I was thinking about something, I don't know, there was a drug that was recently in the news, I don't know if it was here in Europe as well, but there was this drug Vioxx. You aware of Vioxx? Okay, so Vioxx was this drug that is supposed to help you with high blood pressure or something like that. And what's it? Against pain? Anyway, so it was giving 1 people out of 1,000 was getting a heart attack. And then something like, of the people who got the heart attack, 3 out of 10 were actually having serious heart attacks, some even dying. Okay? So 1 out of 1,000, and in that, some died. Okay? And these people, you know, were made to pull this off the market. And then it was shown that these people actually probably knew about this data and hid it from the public because it was something that was successful for them financially. Now that's a criminal activity. It's despicable. Now you look at, I'm not saying, I don't know, there's people who say Scientology kills people, there's circumstantial evidence that it does. But when you have 5 out of 6 people leaving, and these are people who are more gung-ho, so for them to leave, something really bad had to happen, and we had to see a couple of examples here. I mean, Larry didn't even tell you the personal reason what made him wake up and really go, but it's as bad as Marc's, and it'll make you cry, okay? And there are 25,000 stories like that. Let's give them a bunch that aren't. But still, the statistics are such that maybe we should pull this thing off the market, you know? And the other thing is, it's like, if not, pull it off the market. Do you know what a black box warning is? This is something Scientology brags about. It's that because they're all against these psych drugs because they're dangerous, and they lobby Washington, and they brag that we got a black box warning on Prozac. So it's like a thing on I don't know if they have it in here in Europe, but like if you buy a pack of cigarettes, it says, warning, it could be dangerous, it can cause lung cancer. Okay? So maybe Scientology, if they're gonna not pull it off the market, people should be made aware of the consequences. And that's something that government could possibly affect. And that is exactly the last thing I was going to say. So thank you for listening, and thank you.